It was a bright morning, and I could hear the familiar chirping of the ducklings in our yard. I always found their tiny little waddles and gentle sounds so comforting. Among them was a particularly special one, Fluffy. She was smaller than the rest, with downy yellow feathers that stood out like sunshine. Fluffy was my favorite. I had raised her from the moment she hatched, watching over her with the same care a mother would give her child. She followed me around wherever I went, her soft quacks echoing like a sweet melody in my ears. Fluffy and I had an unbreakable bond. One day, as the sun hung high in the sky, I went about my usual routine of tending to the animals and watching over the ducklings. They loved to explore, and I always made sure to keep a close eye on them, but sometimes, just for a little while, I'd let them wander around. They loved to feel the warm earth beneath their webbed feet, the way the grass tickled their bellies as they made their way through the yard. That afternoon, I let them out to roam while I worked nearby, confident they were safe within the confines of our yard. I checked on them occasionally, counting the little waddling balls of fluff as they explored. But as the afternoon slipped into early evening, I noticed something wasn't quite right. Fluffy wasn't among them. At first, I thought maybe she had wandered behind a bush or nestled herself under some leaves for a nap, as she sometimes did. So, I began calling for her in the same playful tone I always used when I called the ducklings to come back to me. But Fluffy didn't come. My heart started to pound a little faster, and I felt that gnawing worry begin to creep in. I looked around the yard, searching every nook and cranny, calling her name. The other ducklings quacked softly as they waddled around, oblivious to my growing concern. But no matter how many times I called for her or how hard I looked, Fluffy was nowhere to be found. Panic set in. I ran around the yard, checking behind every bush, under every leaf, and in every little corner of our property. I even went down to the nearby stream, hoping against hope that she had made her way there for a little adventure. But she wasn't there either. Fluffy was gone, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over everything. I realized I had to face the reality that my little duckling was lost. The yard that once felt so safe now seemed vast and overwhelming, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible might have happened to her. The thought of her alone, frightened, and without me was too much to bear. I searched late into the evening, but darkness soon fell, and I was forced to return to the house. I couldn't help but feel like I had let her down. Fluffy was more than just a duckling to me. She was a friend, a companion, and a little soul who had brought so much joy into my life. The emptiness I felt was palpable. I kept telling myself that maybe, just maybe, she would find her way back by morning. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I tossed and turned, every sound outside making me wonder if it was her. I imagined her tiny feet pattering toward the house, her soft quacks breaking the silence. But as the night stretched on, the hope of her return began to dim. Morning finally came, and with it, a glimmer of hope. I rushed outside, calling for Fluffy, hoping to hear her familiar quack. But the yard was quiet, save for the rustling of leaves in the breeze. She was still missing. I continued searching for days, putting up posters, asking neighbors if they had seen her, and even walking around nearby areas in the hopes of finding some sign of her. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear that Fluffy was truly gone. Losing Fluffy left a hole in my heart that's difficult to explain. She may have been small, but her presence had a way of filling up the space around her. Every day, I would look at the other ducklings, and though they still brought me joy, there was always an emptiness, a quiet reminder that one of them was missing. I don't know where Fluffy went, or what became of her, but I hope with all my heart that she found a safe place, that maybe she's out there somewhere living her own little adventure. I like to think that wherever she is, she's waddling through a patch of grass, enjoying the warmth of the sun, just as she did when she was here. Fluffy will always have a special place in my heart. She was more than just a pet. She was a little friend who brought light into my life. And even though she's gone, the memories we shared will stay with me forever. Thank you for listening to Fluffy's story, a story that reminds us of the love and connection we share with the animals in our lives, no matter how small. If this story touched you, please consider subscribing to my channel for more stories like this. Your support means everything, And together, we can continue sharing these moments of love and connection.